Hello and welcome to BTVi. I'm Sriram Iyer. This is part of our special series 1100 Days of Modi, where we take stock of the policies and project where India might be headed. And believe it or not, the future seems brighter than ever. We're talking about India's digital leap. No, we're not just talking about digital India. It's a combination of many steps taken so far, even some under the UPA, but pushed further by the Modi government, all of which has come together to brought India to this inflection point, from where the economy, more importantly people's lives, could shoot into another orbit. We'll put out the numbers and the possibilities so that you can put your money where your mouth is.
I dream of a digital India where 1.2 billion connected Indians drive innovation.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's call for a digital India is a dream for his supporters and a delusion for his detractors. Dig a little deeper, past the superficial commotion, you will find that a revolution has already taken root on India's soil, and the new India will be built on these 5 pillars. Number 1, Aadhaar. For a country that likes to wear its identity on its sleeve, here's something that goes into the wallet. This unique number, backed by biometric data, is a single solution to India's many problems, from anonymity of the poor to lack of access to leaking subsidies. Number 2, go digital via demonetization. Whatever your views on the impact of note ban on November 8, 2016, one positive thing to come out of it, in no uncertain terms, is the explosion in digital transactions. It may cool off for a bit as cash returns to the system, but the habit will only grow. Number 3, boost to banking. The first step to push people to use digital transactions is to ensure that the millions of Indians get access to banking. While the Jan Dhan Yojana has set the foundations for it, the new e-payment app, Bheem, will only take it a few levels higher. Number 4, data explosion. The Indian telecom operators are getting mangled in a Pyrrhic fight for dominance. But on the other side, the consumer is getting hooked to smartphones and data. Users are already guzzling data by the gallons for nearly free of cost, growing into digitally savvy citizens of a new India. Number 5, digital infra. The tariff war is temporary, but the infrastructure that is getting built is permanent. Not just in private sector, the government itself has embarked on building the broadband highway and 100 smart cities. Not just that, from single window electronic clearance for trade to digital governance infrastructure at the village level, India has all the building blocks to realize its dream of a digital future. So yes, India is about to reinvent itself completely. But what does it mean for investors? To start with, we are looking at an inevitable boom in IT, telecom, banking, insurance and online retail, some of which is already underway. Massive technological progress leads to higher growth rates and more tax revenues, which can again be used for greater public investment in infrastructure and technology. And the virtuous cycle will unfold for years, if not decades. The question is, are you invested in this revolution? In a country plagued with inequalities of all kinds like India is, talking of a digital future must be a bit brave. But the point of this show is to highlight the potential of making good of this vision and the beginning that has been made so far. We have a power-packed panel today and very little time, so I'm going to get to the point straight. Let me invite Rahul Rishi, Partner, Advisory Services at EY, joining us at the Delhi studio. Dr. Jaijit Bhattacharya, Partner, Economics, Regulatory and Strategy from KPMG, again in the Delhi studio. R. Chandrasekhar, President, NASSCOM, and Pramod Saxena, Founder and Chairman of Oxygen Services, joining us from Delhi. Siddharth Vishwanath, Partner, Risk Advisory Services at PwC, is joining us from the Mumbai studio here. And Vivek Bhargava, CEO at Dan Performance Group, is on Skype from San Francisco. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us on BTV. And like I said earlier, we have a very big panel and very limited time. I will request you all to keep your answers as crisp as possible. And anyone can chip into the discussion at any time you feel like. Don't wait for me to question. Let this be an interactive, engaging session. Let me come to you, Dr. Bhattacharya. First, the batters for the government and the Digital India campaign say that the Indian economy is set to shoot into another orbit. Do you believe that? And if it's a yes, how soon will that be?
One of the quick ways of looking at what's going to happen in the Indian economy is a dipstick check on what's happening in the stock market. The stock market factors in what the general economy believes. the direction which the economy will be going. And clearly, with the stock market shooting through the roof, there is a general sentiment that there will be a significant growth in this economy, especially if you look at the big ticket items in terms of large amount of infrastructure spend, which has got very, very significant multiplier effect. If you look at housing for all, it's going to add 3 to 4% to GDP growth in each of the states. So whichever states are going to implement it, you'll get to see 3 to 4% growth. Each of these is going to lead to jobs getting created, which in turn is going to lead to enormous amount of consumption happening. What we need to make sure as we move forward is that the multiplier effect stays within the country, and therefore initiatives such as manufacturing of electronics in India and the general Make in India program has far more effectiveness as we move forward, and that's going to ensure that more jobs are going to get created because of the initiatives that are getting launched. So clearly we don't see any doubt that there will be a very significant growth happening unless there are some black swan effects that are coming in, which could be war or famine and so on. But
I take your point. You believe in this digital dream. You believe in this digital dream. How soon will it be realized?
The digital dream will not be an overnight initiative that will happen. It's a journey. It's a program. What we need to make sure is that the foundations of digital dream are put in place, which essentially is the infrastructure, the capacity building, the services / applications coming on board,
and all of that is happening.
Importantly, connecting.
And we have some data on that. I want to take this across to Rahul. World Bank says that 10% mobile penetration will add almost a percent to the GDP per capita. Another 10% broadband penetration will add nearly 1.5% to GDP per capita. In the last 5 years, mobile and internet penetration in India has grown by 38%. Is this really reflecting in India's economic growth, Rahul?
I believe, but to take what Jaijit just said, I think this is not something which is going to happen overnight. As the infrastructure gets built, as the various segments which were not exposed to any internet access with the broadband penetration, like you quoted the World Bank, I think that is not an overnight phenomenon, but that picks up. You have new channels of services, you have new small and medium-sized enterprises getting access to segments of the market which they did not have, and that directly is proportional to the economic benefit. So clearly the broadband penetration, both wireless and wireline, is going to have that impact. So I do believe that Indian economy is going to be no different, and we will experience it. But yes, you'll have to give it the next 15-18 months to really see a very perceptible impact on this.
Okay, so you may agree with what is happening, you may disagree with it. One of the big factors for this digital push has been demonetization. Again, something that completely polarizes opinion in India, but it is what is for sure that it has pushed people towards a digital way of life. And Pramod, you've been one of the biggest beneficiaries of this entire process. I know that this business will continue to grow, but with a bunch of e-wallets, telecom operators, banks, telecom, they're all sort of fighting in for a smaller pie at this point of time. While the users are sort of spoiled for choice, is the competition already unsustainable?
Well, I think the competition is building up for the users' benefit. The enablers have been put in place, and clearly what has been laid out during the demonetization by giving users choice of different payment modes and Aadhaar becoming center stage with not just mobile wallet but also enablement for point of sales through Aadhaar for payment systems and BHIM and UPI and what have you, the innovation that NPCI has pushed. I think all of these are pointers for a very healthy growth of digital payment systems and digital banking. And it's only a matter of time that people will become more comfortable and find it very convenient to use the digital payment methods and resort to digital banking using mobile phones as the penetration of smartphone is growing. So there is clearly a runway ahead of us for a very exciting digital payments future. And I think all the participants in it, whether they're banks or wallet companies or other infrastructure provider for digital payments, we need in a country of 1.25 billion people, we need a very strong, robust infrastructure. We need strong competition so that people can get the best.
About e-wallets and digital payments, one of the biggest cause for reticence amongst users is the fear around security. And for that, we have Siddharth with us right here in Mumbai studio. And this fear has been projected on, Aadhaar as well. And do you think that some of this fear is exaggerated or is it real?
So I think that's a very good point. So whilst all of this is creating huge opportunities for the country and for the citizens of the country, obviously there's a flip side to it, which is how do we ensure that these platforms are secure? Now, if you look at Aadhaar, over 1 billion biometric data that's available. Now that needs to be absolutely protected. If you talk about mobile wallets, UPI, and so on and so forth, you're creating digital footprint as you transact, as every individual citizen. Now, so there has to be a great focus around data protection. There has to be a great focus around how do you create security awareness amongst the citizens as there's greater offtake in this space. So clearly it's got to be.
So there's a big opportunity for security companies as such, if we can say that? In digital security builders, the companies that are working behind the scenes on this?
Absolutely.
Could you highlight some of them, some names that you may have worked with?
So really, I think it's a nascent space at this point in time. Clearly, there is a need to secure, but I think we are going to see spends in that space take off maybe over the next 1 to 3 years. We yet to see the spends really come in a big way. So there is some spending that's happening, but I think there's a lot more spending that's got to happen.
And all of this sort of is pivoting from the usage of data. The explosion that has happened in India in the last 5 years, or in the last 3 years, the data usage in India has jumped 5 times over. And only last year we saw 4G break ground. And look at that graphic; it will tell you the kind of skew that is there in 4G usage. I mean, it's nearly 3 times that of 2G and clearly nearly double that of 3G usage. And that's the kind of explosion that we are seeing. Vivek, let me come to you because you are someone who has a stake in this. Are you happy with the, for this kind of consumption to grow and for videos and interactive content to work, to sort of scale the next level? Are you happy with the progress that has been made in the National Octave Fiber network, or do you think it's still too slow?
No, I think the progress has been wonderful. In fact, the last 10 years ago, Indian IT companies had a huge competitive advantage in the world. For the last 10 years, if you take, a lot of unicorns were created all over the world. India was missing out on that. I think the first thing that has happened in digital is that whether it's Paytm, whether it's Ola, whether it's Flipkart, a lot of unicorns are being created in India and they're going to grow exponentially. Secondly, I think the consumption, obviously, today, I think the bandwidth consumption because of some of the telecom operators like Jio has almost quadrupled, become 10x in the last few months. In fact, I got a broadband at home with 100 Mbps per second. I'm consuming more than 150 GB per month without even realizing it. So you watch a 4K movie, the consumption and the advertising that you get is just unbelievable. It means now I can understand the impact of TV when you watch a television ad on 4K because it's a fully immersive experience. So I think again, I represent the advertising industry. 2 things that's doing, the digitization is doing for it. First thing is doing is, it's sort of giving the enterprises a level playing field with the SMBs, because now everybody is working in similar platforms. And that enterprises are the ones who advertise. So I feel that the advertising industry is going to grow exponentially because of this whole digital wave that is sweeping India.
No, but the one of the things that is often said, Vivek, is that people really don't know how to make money from this digital content. Has that been answered for good?
I think it's been answered for good, right? So basically, if you ask me, right, even if you take any publishing industry, you sell a newspaper for 2 rupees, it costs you 11 rupees to distribute and manufacture. Rest of it comes from advertising. The digital industry actually has a lot more monetization options. Because if you take digital industry, there's monetization on data, there's monetization on advertising, there's monetization on subscription services. Look at the subscriptions that people are doing now in terms of buying apps or subscribing to Hotstar kind of premium services. I'm paying for Netflix. So if you just take Netflix, Hotstar, and all the Amazon Prime Videos, etc., people are beginning to subscribe for it. It's a matter of time. Once you get addicted to this, then you're going to start subscribing it. So the digital monetization in most countries now is proof its point, and it's starting off as free, but in most countries it's become paid, and then consumers continue to pay for it. I expect the same thing to happen in India.
So what happens to the old media houses? What happens to journalists like us and other content providers?
See, I think the best thing is, right, you're not in the conventional media television business. You're in the content business. So as long as consumers are going to consume content, the platform distribution will change, but people who are creating content will always be king.
Okay.
So I think as long as you are content creators, you'll always be king. As long as you're not married to television as a medium.
And some of the media stocks, the listed space, there are a lot of companies. Do you think they have reinvented themselves in a way that they have embraced the new age technology?
I think they're attempting to. So I think the effort has been more serious for the last few years, but there is a long way to go, because I think once you take a huge chunk of cost that you pay for license and satellite fees, you take it away, and you're now competing with every single small guy who's publishing from a home, then the whole business model has to change dramatically. So that change is yet to happen. But I think there is going to be a lot of disruption in this industry for sure. But I think the future is very exciting.
That's just one leg of it. Media is just one leg of it, though it is one of the things that gets highlighted most when we talk about, digital enterprise, the e-commerce and, all the content companies that are there, Netflix and Amazon are household names now in urban India. But we have to go back to some of the old school industries that have benefited from this digital drive. And that is what I want to highlight now for our viewers before I take it to the next guest. Digital India, some of the companies that have bagged contracts, and we will see the scale of this. Power Grid itself is going to build 10% of the national optic fiber network. Now, for the company by itself, it may, it's a fairly big opportunity. Sterlite Technology, it supplies optic fiber for BharatNet, the same broadband network, the highway that is getting created. Sterlite Tech has so far won 3 smart city projects. L&T has implemented India's first smart city project in Jaipur. And of course, it's also working on the Nagpur project, and it gets 9% of its revenue from the unit that works on smart city. So clearly, even before these things have broken ground and seen the light of the day, we have nearly 10% of a company like L&T making its money from one particular unit that works on smart city. Half of TCS's India revenue comes from government contracts. It has built e-passport Seva Kendras, which we are all very proud of and very thankful to TCS for that. The whole exercise of getting a passport is not so tedious anymore. It has executed the electronic tax returns filing system. Infosys is building the 1300 crore GST network, which is again another big sort of breakthrough in the way India's taxation records will be kept. And Tech Mahindra is building the enterprise portal for SEBI. HCL Info has implemented the smart ration card project. It's a pilot project in Andaman, and there is nothing to say that it won't be experimented in other parts of the country. Okay. And RS Software, it has built the digital payment platform for Bheem. Now, these are companies that have so far benefited from the entire Digital India program, and we will look forward to some of these companies, and these are some of the stocks that you can bet on. Going forward, one of the big questions is, as Hugh Laurie in Tomorrowland says, that we live in a world where there is an explosion of obesity and starvation, and I don't know how strange is that. So, in a country like India, where there is such great gaps in education, particularly in access to education, do you think is India ready to embrace the digital dream, Siddharth?
So I think that's a very valid question. The question is India ready to embrace digital India? And I think one of the key challenges is really, how do we create IT awareness, technology awareness, digital awareness? So in terms of how do we ensure that users across the country are more enabled with how do you use technology, which makes sure that they are able to use technology in the most optimal manner and the most secure manner. So clearly that's an initiative that the government must take to drive that kind of awareness. So okay. I think that's something that the government must do.
And so some of the ground realities, education is one ground reality. The other one is the fact that what's happening in the IT companies. Rahul, I want to take this question to you. thousands of people are losing jobs in IT space today. Is it even fair to talk about a digital dream at this stage? And in that sense, how serious are these digital initiatives? What can be done to fix the problems?
So I think I'll take it in two parts. I think the first, when you look at the IT jobs within the country itself, I think as Digital India progresses, there would be obviously explosion on the kind of services which I talked about, the new segments which would open up. I believe as the opportunities for organizations for serving the opportunity within the country increase, a lot of these IT companies, including the mid-sized ones, would need to focus on really providing those services. And I believe that IT opportunities for those would be on the uptake. At the same time, I think with the new emergence of new technology and platforms, be it blockchain or we hear so much about robotics, as those come in, we obviously have this opportunity to take a quantum leap. And I believe that's where a Skill India opportunity for looking at skilling those individuals for providing services on these new platforms would not only make it more competitive, the cost of IT and the return on investment goes down, but would also provide many avenues for these entities to offer those services.
Okay, Dr. Bhattacharya, I want to bring this to you. In terms of India's, the demonetization and the push towards digital via demonetization, do you think that, one of the numbers that have been put out by the government is that it aims to cap cash transactions to about 40% in 5 years. Is it a dream that's plausible? Can we achieve it? And if it does happen, who will be the biggest beneficiaries of this? Dr. Bhattacharya, this question was for you. Okay, I think we have a problem with that line. Let me then take this to Vivek. Vivek, what do you think? Is this entire push for cashless, presence-less, those kind of new age terms that we talk about these days, do you think India will be able to cap for cash transactions at 40%, in the next 5 years? And if it does happen, who should you as an investor bet on?
So I think this is possible because my whole consumption habits in the last 6 months itself has changed dramatically, because today I play table tennis, I pay my coach through electronic mechanisms rather than giving him cash. A lot of our help at home is now started using digital payments. Even my drivers, when he's going to a toll naka or he's going for parking, he's using digital payments. So I think that shift is already happening. I think consumption of cash as compared to what it was before November has definitely changed. The benefits actually across the sector. I feel that this benefits are going to come where when government is giving some subsidies, it goes to the right person, it goes into his bank account, and then getting it back from him is impossible. So I think that takes a lot of pilferage out, which helps the economy. A lot of large enterprises now will get a level playing field with the SMBs, which I mentioned earlier. So basically, they are the enterprises who are listed. So a lot of mid-sector companies now will grow, and I think there is a clear benefit that will help the stock market. I think India as a whole becomes digital. It can actually then create a lot of digital icons, because the other thing is the data is the new oil. So the biggest benefit of digitization is that you get data across every single vertical, every single industry, and that data can be used in many ways for monetization. So even just now today, right, when you talk about all the people who deposited monies, the income tax thing, so if a lawyer or a doctor or a restaurant has filed a certain amount of tax this year and next year, now what happens, you have a trend across every single restaurant in the city. You can actually predict what is the kind of money each person makes. So from a taxation point of view, that data is invaluable when you actually want to ascertain what is the actual income of that person. So I think the biggest benefit of demonetization is going to produce data for the country, and data is a new oil. And that monetization is going to help the government and the country in a very, very big, large way.
Okay, so I actually want to take this question to Mr. Saxena. Mr. Pramod Saxena, you are a big beneficiary of this. Do you see this 40% as a feasible target? And of course, is the industry prepared to sort of make the most out of it?
Well, I think setting 40% as a target is a good thing. However, one has to realize that in order for this level of data penetration and digital transactions to be achieved, there is a lot more that needs to be done at the grassroots level. It's not just people in the urban areas, also in the rural and small towns and cities, they have to feel comfortable. I think there is a need for a lot of education that has to happen at all levels. Banking is the first step. Digital banking and creating financial inclusion is the first step. And there the enablers like Aadhaar and all of the other things which have been talked about are going to make rapid progress. I think even if we achieve 15 to 20% transactions moving to digital, will be a great achievement in the next 3 or 4 years. So we may get surprised, like it has happened in many other cases in telecom penetration and others. So I wouldn't be surprised if we reach a 40% level in the 5 or 7 years time. But a lot more needs to be done by way of infrastructure and education and making people data savvy, and not just 100 million people in this country or 200 million, but 600-700 million people need to become data savvy. And for that, their comfort with data, the security that you talked about, which is going to be definitely very, very important. Of course, data as a play overall, where big data and analytics together with artificial intelligence will on one hand create opportunities of bigger kinds, where disintermediation will take place in a big way, reducing the costs, whether it's in auto sector like we have seen with the Uber, Ola and others. In housing sector it will happen. It will happen in every segment of the business. That data and customers' data analytics will help.
Mr. Saxena, I just want to sort of interject here. The point is that if you can, the data that we have here, it shows that the electronic payments did spike after demonetization, but it has not managed to sustain the trend. Are you wary of it?
Yeah. No, I don't think I'm wary. You see, what had happened during demonetization was clearly absence of cash. When you have no option, then you clearly use the methods that are available. But it set a trend. It kind of created an awareness, and government itself did a great job in participating in this whole education program. So I would say it has been a great push. This has opened up a vista of opportunities, and I think we should all look at it very positively.
Okay. Now the point is here that we are trying to make in this show is that we have seen. I mean, I'm quoting here from an economist called John Malden, and he says that companies that invest in physical infrastructure, they make a certain amount of money, and the same kind of technological advancement, same amount of investment in new technology or digital infrastructure, the delta, the growth opportunity is a lot higher, than the physical infrastructure. So, Dr. Bhattacharya, this question is to you. The kind of steps that the government has taken, do you believe that the spike in FDI investments that we have seen in the last year and a half, is it because of this, or is there more to come?
Clearly, if you look at just the investments into electronic manufacturing, we have had $18 billion of investment coming in the last 2 years as part of electronic manufacturing, significantly helped by the MSIPS program. If you look at just the fiber optics that you were talking about, in the last 2 years, one has gone from 2,000 kilometers of fiber optic to 200,000 kilometers of fiber optic. Clearly, that requires investments coming in, both domestic and foreign investments. If you look at the mobile phone manufacturing that's being set up, large investments from Foxconn, from Apple, and so on and so forth. So we see an upward trend in investment into IT and technology as an overall segment. And we believe that this is going to continue because clearly the market exists. What prevented FDI from coming in was the regulatory issues and the ease of doing business. Once we are clearing up the regulatory issues and ease of doing business.
Dr. Bhattacharya, that issue is still unresolved. The hardware issue in India still remains because the policies are clearly not enough to entice investors, isn't it?
If you look at what was the situation earlier, we had many cases where there was duty inversion happening, which essentially meant that the cost of taxation for domestically produced goods was more than the cost of taxation for imported goods. Those things are getting fixed. Then there are issues around transportation. I think GST being one large transformation that's going to happen, which is going to make it much easier to do business in India. So again, just like Digital India, even the ease of doing business is a journey. The good point is that many significant steps have been taken and many mechanisms have been created, such as competitive federalism, which is allowing the states to also modify their rules and regime. If you look at it from a constitutional perspective, the central government really doesn't have much of a say in what the state governments do, either in IT or in Digital India or in ease of doing business. Now, what we are witnessing is that the state governments and the central government is working in tandem and being facilitated by initiatives such as the competitive federalism. That's a paradigm shift that is coming.
Okay, that I take that point. There is a paradigm shift. The GST might change, might resolve some of the issues that the hardware manufacturing and the technological, the hurdles that we have witnessing here in India, it might get resolved. Siddharth, I want to bring this last word to you. What do you think? I mean, the World Bank says that, median mobile penetration here in India has been 38% in the last 5 years. How much higher can it go? And in that sense, what is the opportunity for sectors like telecom or any of the other related sectors?
Sure. So I think in terms of mobile penetration, if you look at from an India perspective, it's grown phenomenally. It's been an exponential growth track. I think what's important is to look at what is going to be the smartphone penetration. So whilst mobile penetration story has been there, okay, I think smartphone penetration, and therefore that is what's going to drive the Digital India, the true Digital India dream. Whether it is the cashless economy and therefore the digital payments platform or content consumption, I think that's what we need to keenly watch and look at how the government as well as the private sector drives that entire penetration through.
And what about Aadhaar? I mean, has Aadhaar, the rollout has happened. What is the next step in pushing Aadhaar and making it, what shape or form can this Aadhaar revolution take?
Sure. I think Aadhaar has been it's been like, I think there's a huge vision around it. The whole idea is how do you create, so when you're talking about the entire electronic or the mobile platform driven transactions, be it payments, be it e-commerce, be it content consumption, Aadhaar is going to come into a big, very strong play in terms of becoming a strong authentication mechanism, both in the physical infrastructure world as well as the electronic infrastructure world. So real value of Aadhaar we will see as we move forward is as Aadhaar becomes mandatory as the unique identifier for citizens across services, and that's what's going to play out. So I think one of the steps that's being taken is driving Aadhaar-based KYC in the telecom industry. I think we're going to see that across financial services, partly being addressed, partly will get addressed across and Aadhaar-based payments. Again, I think that's going to be revolutionary as well.
Okay, with that, we're completely timed out on this special telecast, the India's Digital Leap. What I want to say here is the reason why we are doing this show. Like we started with saying that you might disagree or agree with demonetization. You might agree or disagree with Aadhaar being imposed on you, tying up with your tax returns. But some of these things are already underway. Some of these things you probably will have to live with in the near future, or at least for a very long time to come. I would believe these have been rolled out. The question then is, how do you make the most of it? Now the point here is, where do you invest and what are the opportunities that are available to you in this new age digital economy that India is sort of dreaming for, and is India really ready for it? What are the steps that the government have to take? This debate is far from over. We will continue to get our experts and discuss all of this and a lot more, but for now it's a pause on this debate. Thank you for watching. This is Sriram Iyer signing off.